Hey everyone, welcome to another Free Real Estate Friday, free Real Estate Advice Friday. As I've mentioned many times, when I started doing this, I did not know I'd do 35 episodes, and I didn't think too much about the name of it. It's a bit of a tongue twister, so hopefully it's somewhat catchy and people remember it. But anyway, wanted to talk about a few things today. Number one, I want to just talk about the market, as I always do. Give you some anecdotal observations in regards to the market and talk about some challenges that I think are upcoming. And then number two, I want to take a little bit of a departure and talk about something I get asked about all the time, which is becoming a real estate agent. And I'll talk a little bit about doing that as a side hustle as well as doing it as a career. And we'll get into that shortly. But let's start with the market. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I want to give a local plug, as I like to do at the top of every episode. So there's a great store in Frenchtown, and I'm actually Googling it right now to make sure that I get the name right. Okay, so it is known as Blue Ravens Rock Art Revival. This is right on Bridge Street in Frenchtown. They also have a record store around the corner if you're into record stores, but I want to focus more on their main store, Rock Art Revival. So this T-shirt I'm wearing, very nice present from my wife for Father's Day, and it's a very, very nice T-shirt, like very high end. T-shirt I don't own a lot of because a little bit on the pricier side, but something that's nice to have, especially since I have an inspection today and I'll be outside a lot, so I'm dressed in shorts and a T-shirt to keep there. But if you need to wear like a nicer T-shirt, going to a social event, or if you were in a job like mine where sometimes you wear T-shirts, they have like really, really nice high-end stuff that's kind of hard to find. Really cool store. They have a ton of art, and the art, in my opinion, is actually very reasonably priced, and all sorts of concert stuff and whatnot. It's a really, really cool store, and I want to send people there because I hope they stay in business. It's really a great addition to Frenchtown. It's a store like you might be more accustomed to seeing like in a New Hope or something that is, very high-end retail kind of thing, but go in there because I think there's stuff for everyone in there. And if you're into music, it's a really great shop. And I met the owner. His name is Sean Gilday. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Great guy, and they really put together a beautiful store. It's really just beautifully presented and whatnot. So check it out in Frenchtown, Rock Art Revival, and buy yourself a nice T-shirt. Don't buy this David Bowie one because I stake claim to it, but they have a lot of great T-shirts in there. I had actually bought my wife a T-shirt there for Mother's Day, and she returned the favor by buying me one for Father's Day. So they got a lot of great stuff there, so check it out in Frenchtown. All right, so let's talk about the market a little bit. So anecdotal observations here. I'm not going to talk too much about numbers. We know a couple things. We know that mortgage rates have gone up a bit. They fluctuate daily, so it's not even worth talking about on a daily basis what the current rate is, but they're definitely up from where they were over the past few years. But they're still kind of peaking around 6% nowadays, which is historically low, but in recent history that's quite high, and I think it's tempering the buyer's market a little bit, so bringing it down a little bit, but still plenty of action going on. It's going to be a long time before this shifts from a seller's market to a buyer's market. It could be years. Prices going down hasn't happened yet. The only thing we're really seeing at the anecdotal level, especially here in Hunterdon, is just a little less quantity of offers. So we're still seeing offers above asking, but they're all being tempered. They're all coming down a bit. Everything is, I think, in the eyes of anyone that's trying to buy a house or sell houses for a living, it's a bit of a relief. There's a little bit of balance returning to the market, and I think I've been plotting for this for years and telling agents that I think a lot of us are quote unquote doing well because obviously real estate, there's more transactions than ever right now, but we do a lot of work for no return in that market because we write offers that don't get accepted all the time. And a few years ago, that really wasn't much of a factor in things. So anytime that happens, we're working for free essentially. So we're just seeing a little bit less on the quantity of offers, where we used to see, 12 offers on a $800,000 house. We're seeing 3-4 offers. Now, if you still go look at the nicest house in the neighborhood, you're still going to see, quite a bit of offers, pretty heavy-handed, over asking price, yada yada yada. So we are still seeing a bit of that. But I think on the, if you take a step back and you look at your conventional colonials and 4 bedrooms around here, which are a dime a dozen in Hunterdon, we're just seeing a little less manic aspect to the market. So if you are trying to buy, it's getting a little better. Now, listen, you're going to say, well, Craig, at 3%, we were looking in, 750,000. That's going to change your buying power. That is definitely true. And I think eventually there's going to be a lag here, but I think eventually we'll see the prices affected by this. But also, who knows? I mean, I'm not going to get into speculating on the economy and the housing market and interest rates and everything else. But, I would say it's probably fair to guess that, rates will come down from 6% in the next 5 years. And that's your opportunity to, refinance into something different that works for you. But 6%, if you run the numbers, we're getting a lot of very reactive actions from this. People just like hearing that interest rate has essentially doubled over the last 6 months, and people are panicking and just not shopping anymore. But listen, if you need to do something, if you need to make a move in real estate, upgrade your house, downgrade your house, whatever the case may be, you have to look at the bigger picture here. It's historically over the last 30 years, 6% is, not a huge deal. It's just been a while since we've seen those kind of rates. But again, it's a fair expectation to think that you'll have an opportunity to refinance in the next, 5 years or so, which, most people do anyway. I think the people that locked in at, 2.5% to 3.5% when they purchased their house in the last 2 years probably don't need to refinance. But I mean, refinancing is a thing that, most homeowners are probably going to do multiple times over the course of owning their home. So the advantage is the market is coming down a little bit. So if you are trying to make a maneuver, you just have a better chance of success because of the interest rates just kind of tempering the market. And, looking long term, if you're going to live in a house for 10, 15, 20 years, then you shouldn't be worried about a percent fluctuation in interest rates. But that's just my opinion. Everyone has a different opinion on how that should go. Some people are a little more conservative financially, and that's totally fine. But just here to tell you that, your opportunities are actually, as a buyer, in my opinion, are actually increasing. I'm seeing it again at the anecdotal level. I'm seeing more opportunities for my clients to jump into things they really like because everyone's pulling back a little bit. There's not that manic need to buy for people because they see 2.8% interest rate and they're like, oh my God, we have to do this now. So just a little bit less of those types of buyers. But if you're just, a family that's looking to upgrade your home, you need more elbow room for the kids and whatnot. Don't let 6% interest rates take you away from that goal. It's, in my opinion, it's just not worth it. If it's a quality of life thing, I would move forward with your plans and just be strategic in the future and look for opportunities to refinance and just be smart about it. So it'll be interesting. The additional side of this is what's always interesting is the appraisal. So obviously we look back a certain amount of time, generally at least 6 months, very often a year. But those appraisals are still going to be at the old prices, right? The prices when things were at their peak. So for buyers, a house not appraising becomes much less of a concern because you have these incredible comps to compare to. For sellers, I will continue to say the same thing. The only thing you can really do wrong in this market is overprice your house. And the way that happens is, multifaceted. One scenario is people tend to hear about what's going on in the market and then price their house accordingly, not at the suggestion of a real estate professional, but just because they have a number in their mind, feeding into the idea that everything is going for way over asking. And let's say you have a house for, let's say it's a $650,000 house. You hear about the market, you say, well, let's price it 7. I think we could probably get 7 in this market. And, you'll know really quick. You'll probably know in the first week of showing activity that if it's slow, you've overpriced. This can be really problematic in this market because once you get that slowdown, and again, none of this is necessarily a product of informed real estate professional decisions. A lot of it is informed by talking points and things that may not apply to your particular situation. But the problem is once that house starts sitting on the market, people start asking, well, what's wrong with it? Why is it not selling in this market? People also look at your price. Like, let's say you priced at $699 or $700,000. People looking at your house make the incorrect assumption. There's assumptions all around here. They make the incorrect assumption like, oh, it's 700, but it's definitely going to go over asking. That's 750. I mean, you know what? I'm out at that point. Well, guess what? That person that could have bought your house at 650 is now too intimidated to even go look at it. And I'm telling you, this is a daily conversation with my buyers, is we have to keep reminding people, don't worry about the listing price. Let's look at days on market. Let's look at, motivations. Let's talk to the listing agent. There's so much strategy involved. So you can't make simple, like sweeping generalizations about listing price as a seller or looking at sales price as a buyer. This is where you really kind of gain the using the insight of a professional, a realtor, is where it comes in handy. So, someone that's buying and selling 30 homes a year, like myself or any other, top agent, we have a ton more perspective than, just your common talking points and whatnot. We know the local market much better. There's so much more conversation that needs to happen. I always put it in, summarize your concerns or your assumption in about a sentence, then you're not looking at it correctly. Because anything in regards to being strategic about setting a price on your sale or buying a house and trying to determine what a good offer is a very long and drawn out conversation. And it requires a lot of homework for the agent. It's a good portion of what we do. It's why it takes 3 hours to write an offer on a home, because there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just filling out the contract. That's the easy part. So, if you're justifying actions in this real estate market in about a sentence, like saying, oh, we priced it that high because everything's going for over asking price, that's not a good assumption. That needs to be informed by, we priced it this high because we ran the comps. We know what the days on market for those comps was. We know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's maintenance questions, there's condition questions, there's demand questions, there's all kinds of things. And that's where the real estate professionals can give you that perspective. And if they can't give you that perspective, then find someone who will, another agent. So again, there are a lot of reactive things happening out there right now, but I will say this, if you are looking to do anything, it's still a seller's market. That's not going away anytime soon. In my opinion, it's going to be years. Short of some sort of crash, which, knock on wood, because that's how I make my living. So I would not like to see a crash. I would like to just see things calm down a little bit, as they're appearing to do. But short of a crash, I think we're going to stretch out the seller's market for a few more years. There's still a huge shortage of housing. And, hopefully we'll balance it brought around. Listen, if for the next 2 years, every time I put an offer on a house, there's 2 other offers, that would be a relief compared to what we deal with nowadays, which is there's 15 other offers, or there's 8 other offers, or whatever. That gets exhausting, and it's a lot of work for agents and a lot of consternation for buyers and sellers. And it's just, people doing things like waiving inspections and waiving appraisals, and the attorneys hate that. And it's just if we can just bring this all down to a balance, I think that would be ideal. We are seeing some evidence of that starting to happen. So I'll keep everyone posted. We do this every week, so I'll continue to kind of give you my observations. But in the short term, that's my observations. So let's talk a little bit about the other subject today. That's becoming a real estate agent. So I've talked about this a lot before, so if you're watching this and any of this is being rehashed, I apologize in advance. I've told my origin story many times, and hopefully it's useful to someone here that might be considering making a move, or anyone that wants to hear my story again. Then that's good for you. It's not that fascinating, but it is an interesting path because I think a lot of people would relate to how I got into this. So I was in pharmaceutical industry for many years, roughly 15 years, and towards the tail end, I'd say roughly the last decade, I was doing either consulting. I was on the financial side of pharmaceuticals. I wasn't manufacturing or research or anything like that. It was, it could have been really anything. It just happened to be pharmaceuticals. We live in New Jersey. It's a great place to be in New Jersey because there's tons of pharmaceutical around here. So I was doing a lot of consulting, and then as a result of the consulting, and I had kids, I wanted to stop traveling. So I took a very niche job in something that I was starting to be an industry expert in. And when I took this job, I told my wife on day one, I'm like, I have to tell you that the project they're hiring me to do, I don't believe is going to work. I really don't think so. But I kind of have to take this job. It's a good opportunity. The pay was good. I wouldn't have to travel anymore, although I had quite a commute to get there. And I took the job knowing that it was a countdown until it was realized this project was not going to work. And I'm happy I gave my wife that disclosure, because cut forward to when things did start to kind of fall apart. I was like, well, at least I warned you. So when I about a year later, I just had my second kid. I came back from paternity leave, and about 10 days after I came back from paternity leave, I was very much unceremoniously laid off because the project was essentially not working. That's a whole nother story, but I won't get into it too much. But let's just say it was not a successful project as I had predicted. And I quickly took another consulting job, kind of in the industry. And I did that for, I want to say, about 3 or 4 months. Now, right about the time I had been laid off from my first job, I had just gotten my real estate license. So I wasn't active yet. I hadn't even hung my license. As those of you know, you have to sit for a class for 75 hours. You're going to get a big book. It looks something like this. This is a big book. You can see all my highlighting. So I went to, you're going to say, Craig, don't you work for Keller Williams? Why did you go to Weichert Real Estate School? Because it was the closest one at the time for my commute and everything else. It was just the one that worked for me. I was still working full time, so I had to go at night, and I needed to figure out a way that it would work for me. Now, as far as the real estate schools go, Weichert has them, Keller Williams has them, there's private ones, there's everything. As long as they're approved by the state, you're good to go. The fact that I went to a Weichert school, they're actually not allowed to recruit me as a potential agent. It's just a real estate school. So it is just a state real estate school. 75 hours is the requirement in New Jersey. A lot of them are Zoom right now, and some of them have come back to physical classes. The one I went to was way pre-pandemic. It was in 2019. 2018 technically was when I was in the class. I got my license in January of 2019. The class itself is 75 hours. Then you take a test in the class, which basically mimics the state test. And once you pass the test in the class, you get a certificate saying you successfully completed the class, and then you go sit for the state exam. When you pass the state exam, you are eligible to be licensed, and you just have to find a broker to hang your license. I had some connections to Keller Williams here in Clinton. I did an interview with a few other brokers, and I chose essentially Keller Williams Clinton, which was a fantastic decision in hindsight. Slightly impulsive, but it turned out to be a very good decision. More on that later, but and the rest is history. Here I am. So when you see that Weichert real estate book, that's why. It doesn't really matter where you go. You can go to any one of the real estate schools. There's a state website. Just pick one, and whatever works best for you location-wise, that's the one you go to. You don't have to worry about which brokerage it's with. So I get my real estate license I complete all the tests, the class in October, and then I sit for the test in December. I studied like crazy. I'm a traditionally a pretty mediocre student with my ADD and whatnot, but I studied as hard as I could, and which was something I hadn't done in many years. And I passed the test, and then I contacted Clinton KW and decided to hang my license here. And in about mid-January of 2019, I was fully licensed and ready to go. So I had gotten the license. I had already been laid off from the first job, but I was now at the next job and trying to get something going. A friend approached me about selling their house around that time, and I helped them sell the house on my first ever listing. A nice house in Manville. And, went relatively smoothly, much different market back then. And I found out that my new job was expiring, we'll put it that way. Again, laid off twice in about a 6-month period. And I said, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to travel. I don't want to commute. I want to stay closer to my kids. I want to be available. I don't want, 2 hours a day of commuting. And I frankly couldn't stomach a job search. So I said, you know what? And this was never my plan. I had planned to do this as a side hustle for 2-3 years. And I kind of fantasized to my wife that, one day maybe I could do it full time. And she was very doubtful that was going to be a good plan and very fearful of what that would mean for our financial future. And I said, I hear you, but, just hang in there and let me do this. Next thing you know, I don't have a job. So real estate it was. So I kind of got in by default. Had no parachute really, did not have much idea for what I was going to do after that. And quite frankly, I really needed a change. I just mental health reasons and motivation and just general happiness. I was miserable with what I was doing. I did not like the corporate life. I did not like traveling, and I did not like commuting. And I just wanted something that I could just kind of, if I worked harder, I would get paid more. I wanted that. I wanted to be in business with myself. I didn't want to work for anyone else. I wanted to have my own hours and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, all right, we're all in for real estate. So luckily, I got my last paycheck from that last job. And about 2 weeks later, I had a closing for that first house I sold. And then I was on my own. I had nothing else going. And it was a full-blown dive into real estate. And that first year of real estate was definitely exciting. I worked very hard. I worked easily, 70 to 80 hours a week. I would work essentially the normal hours, and then I would go home and I would, make dinner and feed the kids and get them in bed. And then I would go right back to work from probably about 9:30 p.m. until sometimes 4 in the morning, sometimes 2 in the morning, sometimes 1 in the morning. But and almost every weekend. Now, is that what it's like nowadays? No, absolutely not. Once you get your business established, you don't have to be so manic. And I think that it's a thing that comes up constantly amongst agents is once you get your business established, you can be very protective of your time. You don't have to work those crazy hours. But when you're getting established and you want to get a little momentum going in that first year, if you're full time, then yes, it is, it can be a lot. I will say this personally for me, I don't know if this necessarily applies to everyone, but the prospects of once I got full time and I kind of started to understand how it all works, I will say it was exciting enough that I didn't mind the work and I actually really liked it. I would not want to do that for like 2 or 3 years at a time because I think you would just immediately burn out. And when I started getting the business established, which took me roughly 8 months of really, busting my tail and being all in for 8 months, and then I had a little bit of a respite where I could be like, oh, okay, let's pull back a little bit and let me pick and choose where I want to focus my energy. The business is established, the website's up, the social media is up. I didn't have all the stuff to do at night that I did previously, so I didn't have to stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning anymore. But once I had that established, I started pulling back and protecting my hours and making sure that I had some weekend availability for the family and whatnot. But for that first 8 months, that really wasn't a thing. I really just worked around the clock. So that's a very big thing. But I want to talk a little bit about what that first year is like. So I'll give you the perspective. I really was never part-time as a real estate agent. I mean, technically I was for 3 months, but I really wasn't doing it at anything resembling a high level. So I pretty much dove in full-time from day one, because I would say that although I was licensed for 3 months, I really wasn't doing much with it. I don't even think in hindsight, I did not know what I was doing. I didn't even know, like, I don't know. I hadn't established what exactly I was supposed to be doing. I had a few open houses for my one listing. I had some like decent prospects as a result of that, because as I'm sure all of you know, that's how you get a lot of clients, is holding open houses. But I was, just kind of twisting in the wind. I really did not know much of what was going on. When I got full time, and I like day one of me being like, all right, I'm doing this full time now, is when the light bulb kind of turned on, and I was like, oh, this is how it works. And I understood about lead generation and getting new business and doing the things I had to do to generate income for, now I needed to replace, a very good salary, and I have a mortgage and kids and car payments and everything else. So I really had to get running. So that first year, I think, is the most crucial thing for everyone who thinks about becoming an agent. If you're going to do it as a side hustle, that's a separate conversation, and I would talk to you about a couple things about that, but I'll focus mostly on the full-time. If you do have questions about being part-time, I can certainly answer them, because even though I didn't do it much, I'm exposed to agents all the time that are part-time, and I know some of the things that will work and what don't work. Everyone's situation is very different too. Like, for example, if you're a teacher, we have a lot of people that transition from teacher to real estate agent because you have summers off. So, and that's a hot time in real estate. So you can essentially just work all summer full time as a real estate agent, which is a really good summer job. It beats some of the alternatives, right? So in that case, like, that would have a pretty clear structure to it, and we could easily help you with that. I say we, meaning the brokerage, we could train you up. But if you're, a 9-to-5er like I was, then doing this part-time would be pretty challenging, but not impossible. There are, in fact, there are several people in this office that did just that. They did it for years and years, and then they eventually just transferred over to real estate. So let me talk about a few things as far as some reading materials that I think are helpful to people getting started. So there are several books out there that talk about like your first year in real estate. I have this one here. There's a lot of this type of book. All right, so this one's called Winning Secrets No One Tells New Real Estate Agents: How to Go Solo Without Going Broke. These are all fine. They're pretty conventional knowledge. I mean, for me sitting here as a real estate agent, like, the stuff in here is like pretty obvious, and you could get this from YouTube videos and Reddit and everything else. When I first started, I was all over the place. I was on YouTube, I was on Reddit, reading up on how agents get started. There's all kinds of forums for this. There's Facebook groups. There's just tons of stuff. But these types of books are actually good. These are all like self-published. I think I got this one on Amazon. I don't even remember where I got it. It's all pretty much the same idea of like how you get started. So there's many of these. I don't necessarily recommend this one over any of the other ones. I'm just saying there are plenty of them. So, grab one of these like first year real estate. There's a couple books that if you're going to go full time right off the bat that I think are a little better. There's one about, I forget the exact title. I'll Google it real quick while I'm talking, about the hyper local market. And I think that's one of the best books I read, but I will say that a lot of agents, here we go. So that book is called Hyper Local, Hyper Fast Real Estate Agent: How to Dominate Your Real Estate Market in Under a Year. I did it, and so can you. A very catchy title. But actually, it's an excellent book. I think it tells the most real estate stories, which I think a lot of times is what people are the most interested in. So there's a lot of anecdotal stories in there about how that agent got established. But what he does is actually very conventional. It's a very good demonstration of how you kind of build in that first year and get yourself established. And by the way, if anyone's listening, and I do see several people on here, please feel free to post any questions that you may have. So there's a lot of those types of books, and they all kind of tell the same idea. You can get the same information off of YouTube or Reddit or anything else where you find those kind of first-year real estate agent type information sources. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but they're all going to tell you essentially the same thing. Kevin Ward is a very well-known real estate coach. This is called The Book of Yes. Kind of a corny title, in my opinion. I'm not real big on like the motivational, Tony Robbins camp of things in real estate, which, with some agents, that stuff's huge. What this book is really good for, though, is telling you the scripts that you'll need. So just to give you a few examples, what are you going to do to market my home if you're getting a listing? There's literally tons of scripts here about marketing your home. For sale by owner scripts, like we often call for sale by owner people and see if they would like to consider listing with an agent. Expired listing scripts. This is a big one when you're getting started, is your personal circle script. So, listen, when you're getting started, you're going to have to call your friends and let them know you're in real estate. And it's not something you should be embarrassed by. You're not giving them a hard sell. I used to sell Cutco knives. When I called a friend, I was trying to sell them knives. Like that was it. I was just trying to go over there and sell some knives. But in real estate, that's not what you're trying to do, because you're not trying to convince someone to sell their house if they have no idea or no dreams of selling their house. They just don't want to do it. That's obviously not a good proposition. But you do want people to know you're in real estate. So that's what that centers around. One of the biggest things you'll hear agents say is don't be a secret agent. So make sure everyone knows you're a real estate agent. I still have to do that because if you're real quiet about it, you don't have social media and everything else, and you see someone, they're like, oh yeah, we just sold our house actually, and you're like, oh, why didn't you call me? And they're like, oh, we didn't know you were still in real estate. That's what happens to people that are in fact secret agents. So you want to make sure that you don't do that. So Kevin Ward, Book of Yes, there's a lot of those types of scripts that when you're getting started, I mean, obviously as you start to do this for a while, you'll get good at those scripts, but in the beginning, it's intimidating because there's a lot of stuff to know and how not to push too hard, because as my style as an agent is never to push. I come from, kind of a mindset of contribution. It was like, how can I help you? What can I do for you is basically, my business mantra, which I borrowed from a real estate coach because I really mean it. I'm just here to help. If you don't want to do something, I'm not going to make you do it. I literally had that talk with 2 clients today that are trying to sell their house to buy another house. And I made very clear to them, look, I'll take you to look at houses. I know what you're trying to do. Just because I tell you to come look at the house doesn't mean I'm like, guys, you should buy this house. That's not what I'm here for. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to just get a transaction and a check out of it. I want to get a check, obviously, but I also want afterwards them to say, man, thank God we used Craig. We got to tell everyone we know about him. That's how I want to build my business, just basically out of service, so that people are happy with what I gave them and that they recommend me to their friends. And hopefully that keeps me in business. So here at Keller Williams, we have 2 books that are really important. So I actually read this one before I made the connection that it was written by one Gary Keller. I actually just kind of saw this book. Kind of a hyperbolic title if you just look at it, but that's really not what it's getting at. Actually, right up here, it's not about the money. This is actually kind of the blueprint that KW agents follow in terms of getting started, figuring out what you need to do to hit your goals, setting goals, and then figuring out what you need to do to hit them. And in addition to that, it goes further in terms of like maybe you want to create a team, hire an admin, build out your systems, et cetera, et cetera. This is just nothing more than a business blueprint. That's all it is. It's not none of that, psychological mumbo jumbo I was talking about. It's not motivational. It's not hyperbolic. It's not, exaggerated. It's really just a business blueprint. This book is very well known in real estate circles. A lot of people refer to it as the MREA or the Red Book. I don't do that because I find it to be a little creepy to call it the Red Book, but it's a really, really great book. I just happened to pick it up before I knew I was joining Keller Williams. I was still reading it when I joined Keller Williams, and then they came to hand it to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I actually read that book. and I saw the author, and I'm like, oh, right, Gary Keller Williams. Got it now. So a little slow on the uptake on that one, but great book. This one's this is published in, let's see, 2010. So this is an interesting one. Again, very popular book amongst Keller Williams. I'm trying to angle it so that my light's not shining in it, but very popular amongst Keller Williams because it's written by Gary Keller, of course, but it's called Shift, How Top Real Estate Agents Tackle Tough Times. So what do you think this is about? This is about our shifting market that we're currently in. But this book was written in 2010, and it's still very applicable. Basically talks about agents doing the things they need to do to sustain their business through this rough time. Because what we see over the last few years, a lot of people jumped into real estate because they're like, oh my God, real estate's going crazy. I need to get involved in that and do it as a side hustle or do it for work or whatever. I'm going to make a ton of money. And then when things start to calm down a little bit, those are the first agents that are no longer doing real estate because they never really learned how to run a business and sustain a business. That's the most important part. So this is talking exactly to that. And this came out after the real estate crash, obviously 2010, but very pertinent today. There are huge online groups that just center around this book. And I think me personally, I'm revisiting this book. I just read a little bit out of it every day. There's great stuff in here. Again, it's pretty business oriented. It's not like real mumbo jumbo, annoying kind of stuff you'd think. Listen, I've been in sales before. I mentioned those Cutco knives. That was a very sales driven, that was the Tony Robbins type of, get you all juiced up and go out and sell your knives. Are there real estate agents that operate that way? Definitely. Is that how I operate? No. So I would definitely describe myself as naturally introverted, despite what a lot of people might think. I think a lot of people are actually surprised when I tell them that, but I am definitely introverted. My comfort zone is not talking. And there is room for people who are introverted to operate successfully within this business. It's just a matter of learning how to do that. And a lot of the stuff in these books is not touching on that salesy kind of, oriented approach. And that's part of why I joined Keller Williams is, there's a culture aspect to this company that I really believe in. And for someone that like me, who's not trying to be an over the top salesy agent, it's a good culture fit for me. So that's why I'm here. And then last but not least, I just want to mention a book that has been very important to me for a very long time, and I recommend to a lot of people. And I've only had one or two takers. Just looking at this. Oh, look at that. I found an old gift card for a store that no longer exists. Anyway, Getting Things Done by David Allen, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. The reason I bring this up is I started using this when I was consulting, and it non-hyperbolically changed my life in terms of how I organize my day-to-day tasks, not just for work, because I was consulting, so I had it coming from all different projects and just a lot of things to keep track of, and I was like, I need a way to keep this all straight because I'm, again, ADD, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to just keep this all in my head. So this is really talking to that kind of a mental decluttering and organizing. It's a very specific system at a very high level, and I think a lot of times when I communicate this to people, they're just like, oh, I get it, and I'll just do it now. But the book, obviously, it's a thick book. It gets into a lot more detail than what I can tell you. But the idea behind it is basically a zero inbox approach to your personal and business life, meaning you don't have, 10,000 unread messages. Now, I will tell you, as a real estate agent, I can tell you the actual number. I probably have 80,000 unread emails. Let's see. So in my inbox for real estate, I have 10,000 unread emails. Now, there's a very specific reason for that. And David Allen will probably be very upset with me. But the idea behind this and how you process those types of things, even physical mail that you get in the mail, it gives it a system. And it's I'm not the most strict practitioner of this. There are a lot of high-profile people that swear by the system. Amongst them, Howard Stern is a huge GTD, as it's known, getting things done, practitioner, and he said, "Oh, same thing, changed his life," because obviously he's got to deal with advertisers and producers, and he runs a whole operation over there. So this was hugely helpful. But for real estate, you are going to be inundated with text messages, emails, phone calls, everything else, and you really have to have a system. This is a good system. It's nothing more than that. I know that in the past, this system has gotten a little bit of flack for being a little too culty, we'll say. In fact, Howard Stern has taken a lot of that flack. I don't believe that to be true. I just think it's a very clever system. It's pretty simple when you boil it down to its like basic components. There's nothing really, too polarizing about this system, but it is very helpful. So that's Getting Things Done by David Allen. Highly recommended actually for any professional. It doesn't matter what you do. If you are a professional, you will definitely, I think, benefit from this. And it's nothing more than a stress reducer. So to me, this has been crucial. That's pretty much it on my reading list. As always, if you have any questions about becoming a real estate agent, I think it's worth a sit down or a Zoom call if you're not near me. I can certainly have a very open and honest conversation with you about what it looks like, because I think there are a lot of preconceived notions about what it will look like. And I think that, talking to someone who went through this and was really forced into it, I don't want to say forced into it because I did want to do it. I just didn't expect to jump in the way I did with, 2 feet. There are so many aspects to talk about, everything from family life to financial expectations to, it just goes on and on and on. I had a very good friend of mine, Angelo Yusufari, who, many of you know him as a good friend of mine. He was in a pretty similar situation in the corporate world and kind of just had it and decided that he was going to pursue his real estate license. And while we were, meeting and going over, he was taking the class and we were just getting together, just kind of talking about, what his plans were. I think, again, part-time maybe and whatever. And over the course of the next few months, it became apparent that he would have an opportunity to do the same thing that I did. He actually did it faster than I did. I think he was technically full-time from day one of his licensing. And he is doing fantastic now. He's a fantastic agent. But I literally can't tell you how many hours we talked about it. Now, we are friends and we hang out regularly. We actually kind of built a framework of hanging out regularly just to talk about this because there was a lot to talk about. He has a family, he has a mortgage, he has all the same variables I did. I was already established and we were kind of figuring out a way to make it work for him. And he's doing fantastic now. And it was just a matter of putting his head down. I will tell any new agent, just be as humble as humanly possible. The other agents around you all have opportunities for you because we often all need help. So if you are humble and you look like you're ready to learn and eat humble pie once in a while, you will make quick friends in the office and you will have opportunities given to you. But it's got to be with that approach of like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get successful. And then I will say that if you take that approach within a year, you should be pretty established. So it's, but again, there's hours of things to be talked about here as far as what that would look like for you. And, I'm always happy to have that conversation. I really love this career. I hope to never have another career. I hope to just do this until I don't need to have a career anymore. And I do have an eye on real estate investment to kind of, phase out of being a day-to-day real estate agent and phase into just being a landlord. And being in real estate, one of the key things is you get so many opportunities for income. Do you want to service investors? Do you want to service residential? Do you want to service commercial? There are passive income opportunities, particularly here at Keller Williams and particularly within Keller Williams in our ownership group, because we are constantly in a growth cycle. We've expanded in my time from being in Clinton here to Somerset, Middlesex, Jersey City, Bayonne, and now eyes on New York. I mean, we are expanding, and that's all part of our ownership group. So we have opportunities to invest in our title company, our insurance company, in buildings that we purchase, syndication real estate deals, all kinds of opportunities. So as you start to produce within the industry and within the brokerage, a lot of these opportunities are presented to you, and that is all passive income. So, I don't have to do anything to get those checks other than get myself eligible and have the money. Sometimes it requires an upfront purchase. I can tell you on the insurance and title fronts, that initial investment that I paid was paid back long ago. It's nothing but gravy at this point. So, again, that's all part of that conversation of like, what would this look like for me meeting you? And that's a conversation we're happy to have. I really love this job. I really love helping people get established in it because I just think it helps people. I can tell you that myself, and I think I'll speak for Angelo for a moment and say that I think he's also much happier in this role. He's doing fantastic. He's having success. It's a job where if you do the right things, you will be rewarded. It's simple. And, I might get some people that would say, well, I've been in the job and I'm not being rewarded. And I would say that if you maintain that humble attitude and you're working hard, that's the two characteristics that are the most important. You have to be humble and you have to be willing to work hard. If you have those two things, I can coach you through it. Are there people that enter this industry that are just not going to be good at it? Sure. But, honestly, the bar is pretty low. There's a lot of bad real estate agents, quite frankly. It's been said before within the industry that the biggest threat to real estate is incompetence. And it's very true. It's not real hard to get your license. It's not easy, but it's not hard. And there's just so many part-time agents that just are not in the trenches every day and just, don't coach their clients well and stuff like that. And, they're just not great agents. So, but anytime you want to talk about becoming a real estate agent, I'm 100% open to it. Shoot me a message. My phone number is here. You can text me or call me. Message me on Facebook, comment on YouTube. There are a million ways to get in touch with me. You can just Google my name and find all my information. And I'll be happy to discuss that with you. So I saw quite a few people stop by today. So thank you so much. I actually have to run to an inspection, but I will be back next week. As always, if you have any follow-up questions or anything, you can always contact me and I'll talk about them next week, or I'll contact you personally and talk about them. But hope everyone's doing well out there. It's Friday. The sun is out. It's quite hot out. I'm not looking forward to staying out in the sun for a while. But hope you're all doing well. Hope everyone's getting their vacations and kids are getting out of school and fun times ahead. Something we could all use these days. So, all right. I will soon. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.